If you've been hovering around the cybersecurity space, then you might be wondering how people in cybersecurity respond to incidents so quick. You might think there's a really big team of people who are constantly monitoring every single thing that's happening, spending countless hours just staring at the screen for any sign of suspicious activity. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's none of those things. Cybersecurity professionals need to be efficient. That means we need to optimize the way we monitor activities in our environment. And this can be done through the use of a SIEM, which stands for Security Information Event Management. So in this video, I'll explain what exactly is a SIEM, how cybersecurity professionals use this tool, and how it effectively transforms the whole incident response process to the next level. Alright, let's dive into what exactly is a SIEM. Imagine you just bought a new phone. This phone doesn't have any apps or data, just a blank device. Then you start downloading some apps, maybe Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Eventually you have a bunch of apps on your phone. So now you start interacting with your apps and you get notifications from them. Some are text messages, some are app messages, and so on. In this analogy, your phone is pretty much a SIEM, a centralized platform that essentially allows multiple sources of information, in this case your apps, to flow into your phone where you have access to all those information. And this information are readily available to you almost immediately in your hand. Now if we switch back to cybersecurity, we can think of those apps as firewall, website security, email security, endpoint security, and so on. And an example SIEM which I always bring up is Splunk, which acts like a container that brings in and stores all this information, or what we call event logs. Okay, now that we understand what a SIEM is, we need to understand how it works. Remember how I said cybersecurity professionals need to be efficient? That means we can't just bring in all kinds of logs into your SIEM. This will drive up the cost significantly and add a lot of noise. So we need to be smart about this. Let's take an example with firewall. On the face level, everyone understands that firewalls are essentially a bridge between your computer and the internet. Some common details of a firewall log will get our source and destination of an IP address, types of ports like TCP and UDP, the country of the connection, the packet size of the connection, and so on. There are a lot of information we can retrieve from a single connection, but do we really need all of that? If our only use case is to block malicious traffic, do we really need to know the size of the packets and all the other details on the payload? The answer is no. So that means we can disregard all the unnecessary information so we can reduce the noise and only focus on bringing in the source and destination IP address and the ports into our SIEM. Now that's only an example for the firewall. We have to do the same things for web security and endpoint security, email security, and all the other security solutions that we have. And once we have all the logs from all different sources flowing through into our SIEM, we can move on to the next stage, which is setting up our monitoring systems. There are two main methods for monitoring in cybersecurity: dashboards and alerts. Both of these can be configured on our SIEM platform. A dashboard is basically like a summary of information that a security analyst can rely on for quick statistics. So let's look at this example I found on Google. This dashboard is showing some statistics on monitoring and performance. So we can have different sections within the dashboard to represent different metrics, like this one here on the right, which shows processes of an application. As part of my daily routine, I also have my own customized dashboard which essentially brings in all the important statistics from different systems, so I can pretty much know the status in one glance. For those who are keen on understanding how we can build these dashboards, feel free to watch this video here. Anyway, so like I said earlier, dashboards are for us to proactively monitor, but what about the events and logs that we don't see on a daily basis? This is very simple. We can just create alerts for them. A lot of SIEM platforms provide alerting capability where we can create specific search queries and have email or chat messages sent to us if there is an event. It's also important not to create alerts for everything. You don't want to flood your inbox with a bunch of alerts every single day. That's a one-way trip to burnout. If we take the previous firewall example, we know we're only after malicious network activity, so we can just block them off. If you're in a big organization, the network traffic you need to look into can exponentially increase and easily overwhelm you. This is where automations come into play. Let's say you also onboarded another threat intelligence solution, which essentially allows you to look up those network activity and provide a score. If the score ranges from low, medium, or high risk, then you can pretty much create an automation or a policy for the firewall to auto-block all the medium and high risk traffic, essentially cutting your workload by a lot. Then for the remaining traffic, you can refine the criteria so only specific activities will trigger alerts for you to investigate manually. So here's an example of what a SIEM looks like using Splunk. We navigate through the huge amount of logs through the use of indexes, which basically acts like a bucket to separate different types of information. So for this example here, we can see we're using this particular index. We can see a lot of different log sources. So referring back to our previous analogy, These are pretty much the app information that's feeding in. And we can further separate these logs by their source type for more granular detail. And once we've completed our search query with all the information we need, we can either add this to our dashboard or create an alert. So whenever this search comes back with a result, we can set up a chat pop-up or email into our inbox so we get real-time notification. We can also install different apps here to bring in more data or use their API. For example, I use Abuse IPDB, which is basically a lookup website for IP addresses. This is a pretty common app that I use on a daily basis where I run all our existing network connections against this app to check for malicious IP addresses. So an example use case is from this search here. This search query is using a function from Abuse IPDB app and takes the source IP as an input. Then it spits out details like the abuse score, the country, the company that's hosting it. We can also feed this information into an automation. So for example, Splunk has a SOAR solution. SOAR stands for Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response. I think I got that right. So this solution allows us to create custom automations called playbooks, which we can use to handle easy and repetitive tasks to reduce our overheads. We can also link apps over on the automation so it can perform actions like block IP addresses, websites, emails, and senders, and a lot more. We can actually automate a lot of things, but I know some of you guys might think that we can automate our job away, but that's not true. There are a lot of work that requires a human confirmation, so don't worry about being made redundant in cybersecurity. Anyway, all this type of information and capabilities are really useful for SOC analysts during an investigation to determine if an activity is expected. So moving on for a more advanced capability on Splunk, we have the Enterprise Security add-on. This is essentially a powerhouse for a SOC team where it takes in all the logs that we have on Splunk and refines them into pre-built dashboards, alerts, reports, and automations to maximize our response efficiency. So dashboard features like security posture, SOC operations, incident review are some examples which enables us to quickly respond to stuff. So wrapping up the video, we need to keep in mind that SIEM is generally for data analytics. If we need to take specific actions from an alert, we'll have to go to the specific system and perform the action over there. Anyway, I hope you guys learned a thing or two from this video. And if you guys enjoyed it, give a like and subscribe to support this channel. Thanks for watching.